the consequences of the Ukraine war and all. Okay, and I think that because we're finishing the paper, I should give some some concluding remark on that space. So Ukraine war, where it stands now. Okay, Europe and the US have rallied behind Ukraine, sending weapons and financial aid and slapping sanctions on Russia, while NATO has grown more cohesive. Still, the war has exacerbated the divide between the group of seven nations, and the other one is known term as Global South. So now, this thing that I didn't discuss in the last lecture is that there is a divide between this group of seven, G7, US, America, US, UK, Japan, EU. So that's G5. Okay. So G7 and Global South, there is a growing discontent about this Ukraine war. So countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East have refused to sign on to sanctions and have largely acted like it's business as usual with Moscow. Some have resented being called upon to take more critical stance against Russia, saying for starters that they can't afford to economically. Okay. Very little has gone right for Putin in Ukraine either, okay, because everything now seems like a huge mess. Okay. Now, this group of 20, G20, is the economies in the world which is equivalent to 85% of the global economy. 85% of the total world GDP is represented by only these G20 economies. Okay. So G20 summit will be held in Indonesia this year. Biden, Xi, Putin will be there, and Zelensky is also invited. G20 compromises these countries, as you can see, okay, with global economic 85% global economic output. However, only half of this number have joined the international sanctions imposed on fellow members, Russia, over the invasion of Ukraine. So the G20 is divided. Okay. The Russian GDP declined annual 4% last quarter, first drop in over a year. So when the war started, the data from the official agencies in Russia became sort of unavailable. Okay. So since then, starting from March, okay, there was a widespread speculation from different agencies like Bloomberg and all, okay, that what is going to be the cost to sender, cost to receiver of the sanctions. Okay. Initial estimates were about 10% of the GDP. Then in March, and then in April it was like revised to 9.5% and so forth. Okay. Eventually, the data came. The first estimate, just late August. Okay, the first estimate came, and it was 4% of the GDP. So according to what the speculation was, the total cost, okay, so the first estimates are less than that. Actually, less than half. Actually, so 4%, while it was 10% in the beginning. So it still represents a substantial fall in living standards in 6 months. Okay, but post-invasion drop is milder than forecast, okay? And it may last longer. What is more more serious or more meaningful is this, that given those factors, the fall in GDP and all, so what we have just seen is that if there is a factor, that is a contraction in the economy, either through monetary policy or fiscal policy, so contraction leads to, fall in income, right? So because of this fall in income, what in Russia, their consumption has fallen, and because the consumption has fallen, their imports from other countries have fallen. On the other hand, their exports of gas and other fossil fuels have soared. So you can see that Russia's current account surplus, has so it's basically it's about $60 billion, $70 billion. So the average was about $40 billion, in terms of high, starting from 2020. They had high about $40 billion mess. But now they have a staggering, Russia's demand to pay for gas in ruble was rejected by EU at first, but ultimately Russia forced the EU to back down, as most of the major consumers, Germany, Italy, and France, signed up to the new terms that included the requirement to open special accounts with Gazprom. So keeping the lending free of sanctions, which led to the massive buildup of current account surplus, more than double than historical average since 2010. So I consider the effect of using ruble for gas scheme to be positive. Orshkin, you may want to sort of search this guy. Orshkin is the man who designed the scheme. So so who is very young man, but he has exceptional ability, to sort of understand complications in the global financial capital systems, and to innovate strategies, to avoid certain types of outcome. Oil price, that is actually hovering around $100, but it is mostly it's going to fall, and it is falling, and that's why all the OPEC has in the last meeting have decided that it is not going to sort of increase production, but it is actually going to cut production. And once that decision was taken, the oil price has gone slightly up. But the thing is oil price is not the factor here. The main factor that is really rattling the European economy is the gas price. So the gas price is, this measurement of the gas price is in such a way of, per mega watt is $350. So this measure of gas price, if you convert it to the oil price, then it looks like $350 per oil. It's equivalent to $350 per oil. This is how much the gas prices have gone up. People are forgetting about Ukraine. Public engagement with Ukraine has, as of May 29, daily social media engagement with Ukraine has fallen to its lowest since before the invasion. So you can see that, that this was the total sort of engagement, say in Facebook, in LinkedIn, and Twitter, number of tweets, retweets, likes, and all. So there are various metrics, by which a social media engagement is calculated. So total, you can see that total amount of engagement went up to 35 million per day. So now that has come down. So which means that, when the war started, everybody had a, for several reasons, many reasons, they had a, sort of interest on the war and, what's happening in Ukraine and all, But slowly, it's just not there anymore. It's it has come down to the level where it was as low as, before the war. So published news articles on Ukraine have fallen. Published news articles on Ukraine have fallen from post-invasion peak of almost 77,000 a day in March to 10,000 in June. So same here. If you read news magazines like Bloomberg or the Economist and the Times and all, you'll see that you'll not find Ukraine articles that much that you were getting in the beginning. So the bad things that are happening, of course, of which we are not at all happy, that the toll on the innocents is really grievous, and you can see that during March the number of casualties was above like 2,000, about 3,000, and about 2,000 number of injured. Thankfully, that has come down. Okay, the number of casualties is probably like in its hundreds, and a few thousands of a number of injuring. So in August, so it has come very, very low, which is a very good sign. So one of the fact that a war, when it happens, given everything, the most important fact that no one can deny is the loss of lives and people. So you can see that that has come down a lot. So which means that at least that at least there is one side on which we can slightly relax. There are other areas, other places in the on globe where there can be fighting eruption, and then there are like many more lives are lost within a very short span of time. So to me, the most important or the most really serious thing is that at present, okay, there are 6 million registered refugees. So which means that maybe 10, 15 to 20 million people displaced. They have displaced from their homes, but they haven't gotten the refugee status. So because basically refugee status means that you're displaced and you cannot go back to the place of your displacement because your life is at risk. Okay. So that's a very strict definition of refugees. So you can see that there are 6 million refugees. You won't find it in the newspaper that they talk about it, okay? But it is a huge matter. 6 million refugees is not a matter of joke. It's not a matter of just say that, okay, only 6 million refugees. No, it's not like this. It's a huge number, and that is causing some problems. And the problems that are causing, you can see from here, Ukraine is gradually losing support and sympathy in the West. So it's not about the divide between G20, and G20 nations, So because G20 nations, so in global South, there are different kind of but here you can see that because of this refugee crisis, with trouble at home, not all Europeans agree on the amount of attention dedicated to Ukraine. You can see that almost 50%, all countries, almost 50% say that too much attention has been given to Ukraine. And don't know is about another, say, 15%, 10%. And only about right is, maybe another 30%, 35%. But percentage of people saying not enough, okay, is very, 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 very small. Okay? And if you can see that the countries who think that too much attention have been given are like Romania, Poland, okay. So Romania, Poland, you can see that they are bordering Poland and Ukraine. Okay, So they are from that perspective. What about Italy? It's because the economic impact that it is having in whole Europe. Okay, so Italy, Spain, France, Germany, Great Britain. You can see that the public support for this war. I mean, to prolong the war, is not quite strong, and as the time will go, we'll go into further into this. Okay, we'll find that the support will be falling. Okay. Electricity price in Germany has soared to all-time high, and the risk of cold, dark winter plagued with blackouts remain very real for the economy, for the continent. It's amazing. Like, so basically it means that the price of electricity megawatts, it's going to be like so high that it'll be very difficult to even run the heater for some time. Or so the issue is whether or not this war is sustainable. Okay, what the Russian thinks. So this is the people who think that they are in the wrong direction. It goes about 50-50, starting with and then eventually this has gone to a level where those who think in the wrong direction is 20%, and those who think in the right direction is at the 60%. Now, note that this is not a survey made by Russian government. This is a survey, a private survey made by a private agency, data collected by Bloomberg. Okay, so it means that the Putin can sustain the war. Okay, because he still seems to have support from his people. Okay. The way to stop this war for Putin is when Putin knows that if he continues to do so, then he actually can't come back to power anymore. So that's the to me that's the ultimate threat. But it doesn't seem like so. So what the picture we're getting here is that the public support for Ukraine is falling, not in G20 but in Western countries. Okay. And the support for Putin in Russia is not falling, as much as would like to. So it means basically that to me it means that the war should come to an end. Okay. It might. So I'm not on those analysts who believe that it is not possible for the war to end in 6 months or 7 months or 12 months or something like that. I believe that after this winter, the war will be over, and so that's what my forecast is. Okay, and let's see how it goes. So now let's talk about the U.S. economy. So what's happening in the U.S. economy? The sales and income adjusted for inflation in the U.S. Shows that all the data that is showing in the different annual reports and all, with high retail sales and all, these are all untrue, because the real data shows that once we adjust for inflation, both sales data is falling and disposable income for the consumers are falling. So in real terms, after this, after real terms, the U.S. consumers are becoming poorer. Okay. Similarly with U.S. minimum wages, every time the minimum wages are going up, you're increasing the minimum wages, but inflation is going up, at a higher rate. So what happens is that it is actually, brought down the minimum wage, whatever it has had increased up to this much. Now it has come back. It has gone down. The real wages have fallen in the United States. So sales have fallen. The real wages are falling. People are, getting poorer, are poorer than they were before. And the inflation adjustments in USA shows that at the current moment, 9.5% inflation rate, and in 6 months it will be 9.7%. So it is possible that in 2 years, in 24, in 2 years, US inflation will reach to 6.9%, which is still 3% above the 1.3% range of the inflation target. So US can reach to 6.9% in 12 months from now, and we can reach to 3% in 12 months. Okay? So New Zealand is in a much better situation than US. Okay? The cost of food and drinks in England. So the last results show that the inflation rate year on year was 10.1%, but calculation shows that this 10.1% is equivalent to 18%, for the poorest. So there's really bad situation in Europe and everywhere. Okay. So what are we suggesting? What do we want the world, in which direction to go? Okay. While interest rate hikes, the central bank hawkish stance, would likely increase unemployment over time, they will be insufficient to rein in inflation in the short run. So you can't reduce the inflation rate to 3% by 2 years. You'll need at least 5 years. Okay. Recent price increases may have been triggered by extraordinarily high demand following pandemic, but supply-side factors, especially labor shortages and the energy crisis caused by the Russia's war in Ukraine, have also played a significant role. So the war here is the main thing. Inflation cannot be contained unless these factors are addressed too. The situation called for 3 supplementary initiatives. First, the conflict in Ukraine must be de-escalated. Although the war did not cause the inflation, of course, it has certainly contributed to rising prices, especially in the food and energy sector. Food and energy is the main part. By exacerbating shortages that were previously expected to recede as COVID-19 restrictions were lifted. To move COVID-19 past COVID-19, in order to address labor shortages in specific sectors, vaccines are given. So we believe that different restrictions that still are there in the economy, not only in New Zealand, but in Australia or in all the global economy, okay, those must be abandoned. It is past time to abandon rules requiring workers to take multiple days off if they test positive. So you now require to sort of isolate for 7 days. I mean, even when they are asymptomatic, such policies are that these are the problems that are causing real issues in the market. Okay? And this must be abolished. Okay? Not only in New Zealand, everywhere. Okay? So if that is the case, then the current scenario in US and UK, the biggest country in the world in terms of inflation, the war must be stopped. That's the first thing. But if the war cannot be stopped at the moment, then other factors that are causing to inflation, like the restrictions, like labor market has to be absolutely withdrawn, because no one can afford these things anymore. The final thing that I want to discuss about is the US-China relations. Yeah. and I think it's very important. I would want to sort of talk about the Lawrence Yong, who is the Singapore's prime minister in waiting. So Singapore is a very important country in Asia. So it's a small country, but in terms of its connectivity, it is very, very important. And what Singapore says matters for the global economy. Okay. So according to Singapore's Prime Minister in waiting, Lawrence Yong, the US and China may actually sleepwalk into a conflict. So what they're doing, they think, they think that, okay, things may be under control, why not, do a little bit of this or that, okay? If they don't engage with each other and de-escalate rising tensions over Taiwan, simple. And the world cannot have another sort of problem along with Ukraine, okay? And then another problem in Taiwan in the Pacific. It'll be a very, very sort of sad thing to happen, actually, if it does. Okay. Yong said that the relationship between the world's biggest economies was on a very worrying trajectory. It doesn't make sense. You're fighting with each other, it just doesn't make any sense. Why? Very worrying trajectory in the wake of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan and China's subsequent military drills around the island. This has been happening, even before that. So these are onshoring and reshoring, okay, nearshoring. So I can see that, the American companies, okay, offshoring in China, they are bringing back. According to a Bloomberg survey of US C-suite executives, 90% of the respondents said that their company was either in the process of or considering moving production out of China, with around 80% saying they were considering bringing some production back to United States. And these are part of US-China trade war, that, what happens. But these have sort of, subtle messages. Means that what you expect there to be conflict with the US and China. So that's a message, So, and this says, okay, these the companies or the organizations, who are there, they don't feel safe anymore, or they think it's too risky to be there, so it's better to come back. And that means that the global economy or dependency, between countries are becoming more fragile, and things might escalate into something worrying. Second thing that is very, very problematic is this, that we had seen that the interest rates were quite fixed in China for a long time. Okay, after the COVID, there was like cut in interest rate, but it was like fixed for a long time. So things are looking nice, but suddenly, like August, last month or beginning of this month, okay, August, they have reduced their two key interest rates. Okay, so one was China lowered the rate on its 1-year policy loans by 10 basis points to 2.75%, and the 7-day reverse repo rate to 2% from 2.1%. So reducing interest rate, while the whole world in the Europe, America, everywhere, they are increasing interest rate. Their situations are so overheated, and now they have to cut down on inflation rate. Okay, so they're increasing interest rate. China has reduced interest rate. So it is not a good sign for the world economy. What's going to happen? Like, as you can see, is that the MSCI, the Morgan Stanley China index, okay, which is in Hong Kong dollars. So that day when the Friday and Monday, the Chinese index was, trading at a very high rate. So when the rate cut applied, the stock market, the Chinese index was like fallen sharply. It tried to sort of, recover during the midday, but then at the afternoon, it just gave up, so it gave up steam. So it means that it is affecting Chinese equity markets. It means that it is affecting equity investors, whole world. I mean, it is affecting us as well. Like, our Q savers are invested in these portfolios. So, so where is everything going? What is happening? So PBOC, the People's Bank of China, believes that the Chinese economy is in a worse state than it appears. Worse state than it appears. Okay, so the exports have boomed, but consumption of imports is tailing off. So the 12 months average of exports shows that it is it's going up. That's right. Okay, but the imports 12 months average is also going up. But you can see that at the end, the import has stalled. So when a country like China, when Chinese import stalls, it means that there is something very wrong within the economy. They're not being able to sustain, a few things. Okay, and as you said in the beginning, a US dollar appreciation is not only United States problem, it is whole world's problem. Everybody gets affected. Similarly, a slowdown in Chinese import is not only China's problem, it becomes whole world's problem. Okay, like for example, this is the reason. Do you know what? This is the reason the Kiwi dollar had sort of depreciated, because analysts believe that they won't be able to sell the projected amount of milk to China. So what is happening? According to the International Monetary Fund, the growth projections were this. 2021, the growth projection was 6% for the world economy. In 2022, because of the war, it was cut into half. And for 2023, the projection has been 2.9%. And the growth of advanced economies in 2023 has been halved to 1.4%. So only 1.4%. The world economy is going to grow at 2.9%, and 1.4% of that is going to come from the advanced economies. But the emerging markets and developing economy is supposed to be growing faster, slightly faster than 2022. Okay, and that has led to a global growth of 2.9%. Now, if China, which is the biggest economy in the world, okay, and an emerging market economy, if their growth falters, okay, then this 3.9% will be revised downward again. And if it is revised downward, the world economic growth forecast will be revised downward as well. And advanced economies growth, which is 1.4%, cannot be 1.4%, because if China's import falters, okay, then advanced economies are not selling goods to China, so their growth is going to fall even more. So at this current projection, given things are happening in China and all, okay, we have a dichotomous situation. Central banks are aggressively increasing interest rate to reduce inflation rate. On the other hand, the same world, there is a worry of recession at the same time. Okay. So we are all, stopped, or we are all here in this situation. Inflation is going up, 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 and the central banks have to bring it down, 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 down. And at the level, the things that they were going, the GDP is going to go down, 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 down. Okay. The question is how much down the GDP will grow. Like, at this forecast, But because if China keeps on, going down and down, okay, it means that it brings down the world GDP growth as well, even further and further. Okay? So, which means that we're expecting a lower inflationary period, maybe in 1.5 years, but it will be followed by a severe depression or severe recession. There'll be high unemployment for a long time. Okay? So we'll reduce inflation, okay, but the next monster is waiting for us in 1.5 years. I think that's where I want to stop. Okay, so thank you very much for your coming to the class. Okay, I think we have now finished all the topics that I had in mind. So trying to give you a balanced view of how the world operates. What are the main factors that you should be looking at when you are analyzing an economy. Okay, so demand, supply, the factors of demand that affect the supply, factors of supply. Always look for those criteria, those factors. If you want to sort of analyze something. And then if you talk about the price, inflation is a very, very relevant factor for business. Okay, so price, okay, and then followed by what happens to employment. Are people going to remain employed? Are people going to sort of remain unemployed? Will they lose their job or will they leave their job? Are there new sectors opening up in the economy? How the economy is interacting with itself, and how the economy is interacting with other economies. Okay, so what are the link between the impact, the linkage of this economy, okay, with itself and the other economy. Okay, and then you have to think about economies and what is the competitor. If you think about New Zealand, you have to think about New Zealand's competitor, which is Australia. If you're thinking New Zealand's export, you have to think about New Zealand's competitors in terms of exporting the same goods. Okay, then think about what is happening to the exchange rates. So all of these things give you a balanced view of what's happening in the world. Okay, and how everything is interrelated because it's a global market. We're lucky in the sense that we could get to sort of analyze the effect of some shocks in the economy at the current time. We had pandemic and Ukrainian crisis at the same time. Okay, but usually this will be over like in 1 year. Okay? But this kind of shocks will always appear. They will come, and how you analyze those shocks. So that is very important. So I would ask you to sort of. I do write in LinkedIn quite about these things. So there are you can follow me in LinkedIn, or you can email me because if you have any question. I do have connection with my old students, and sometimes they just want to know that, hey, Ghazi, what's going on? I just want to get my head straight around with this thing. What do you think? I said, yeah, sure. So do keep in touch with me, and if there is anything I can do for you, I'll be happy to do so. All right then, I'll stop here and let you go and have sleep.
Thanks, Ghazi.
Thanks, Ghazi. Cheers, mate.
All right.
Ghazi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ghazi.
Thanks, Ghazi.
Thank you.
Thank you.